FCC to let his company launch its first prototype satellite as soon as this summer.
Our first satellites will be able to deliver a full moon of brightness for about 5 minutes. That's demonstrating the technology so we can learn about it and then build a constellation out after that.
He has high hopes for that future fleet to help with things like nighttime emergency rescues and eventually to turn a profit, charge $5,000 an hour to get a single mirror fanned out and pointed at the customer's target.
We'll also be able to light up farms, grow plants, light up solar farms, produce clean electricity.
But launching the space mirrors is igniting plenty of controversy.
Listen, we don't want a private company or private individual deciding whether we're going to obliterate nighttime in my backyard.
Dark Sky, one of the world's leading advocates for protecting natural darkness, says light pollution would degrade the environment, interfere with space research, escalate the dangers of space junk, and disrupt the circadian rhythm of all living things on Earth.
There will be tremendous environmental impacts.
The FCC's policy says anything in space is extraterritorial and not in the jurisdiction of the United States, meaning impacts are not subject to environmental review. The agency did not respond to our request for comment.
It's absolutely not our intention to harm the Earth, harm animals, affect things negatively.
In the 1990s, Russian cosmonauts launched 2 space reflectors. Newspapers from the time echoed the same concern of disruption to life on Earth. More recently, NASA warned that light pollution from mega satellite constellations will contaminate astronomical research. Elon Musk's SpaceX, which owns Starlink's 10,000 satellites, publishes best practices to mitigate the impact of reflections. Unlike Starlink, here reflections are the point, but with precision.
Most of the time, the satellite will be reflecting sunlight away from the Earth. Somebody requests light, we then point the light at them purposefully. The precision of the spot and the ability to turn it off are key to that.
Still, these latest mirrors are shining a light on the bigger space debate.
They sure are. Tom Costello, thank you so much. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. All right, that work? Okay, are we doing the open? Hey, what's up, stream? Look at this. I think so. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me see. Okay. Let me see here. And then is the big question where his money is right now? We have one. Jeffrey on Capitol Hill getting grilled by lawmakers. If you want the truth, follow them. All right, cool.
Position B.
2 separate attacks here and there. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do it. I'm great, SML. How are you? Here we go. This position?
Great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You know what we're about to do, SML. Anybody else that's just joining us? Ooh, I think we just fired up TikTok. We might have, did you guys know, I think we got Twitch tonight too?
Very good.
I think 2 people were watching on Twitch. Let's go.
Kick soon.
Kick soon. Kick soon.
4, 3.
Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight 2 separate attacks here in the United States being investigated right now as potential terrorism. One, an attack on a synagogue outside Detroit, Michigan that ended in gunfire and a suspect ramming his car deep into that temple. The synagogue's priest
death for their children.
And we are on the ground with a live report. Then a deadly shooting at Old Dominion University that officials say was carried out by a gunman who already served hard time for supporting ISIS. Plus, Iran's new supreme leader breaking his silence for the first time since succeeding his father, vowing to, quote, avenge the blood of the martyrs. Around the same time, an American-owned tanker was attacked by Iran and left burning off the coast of Iraq. All while Iranian hackers have launched a major cyber attack on a company in Michigan. So what happens when that conflict expands into cyberspace? And Jeffrey Epstein's accountant was on Capitol Hill getting grilled by lawmakers. It's got investigators chasing down an old rule in Washington, which is, if you want the truth, follow the money. All right, I think that works. Hey, what's up? June Zapaket 8174. How is it going?
Sounds good.
Books? Yeah, interesting. Jesse, I mean, I'm sure they're combing through all of that stuff. Let's see what I done. Okay. Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight's two separate attacks here in the United States being investigated right now as potential terrorism. One, an attack on a synagogue. This is James. Investigators chasing down an old rule in Washington, which is, if you want the truth, follow the money. The good news is, in the synagogue attack, it was a preschool there, and there was a while where everyone that was watching that was just, praying that nothing, that those kids were safe. And fortunately, we understand at this point the only person that was killed was the attacker. So that could have been so much worse. And then the attack that happened at Old Dominion, that one's pretty wild too. The gunman went into a room, and authorities are saying that he went into an ROTC room. It seemed like he was asking around, went into this room, opened fire. I think a few people were hit, but the people in the room, I think they called it neutralized. They neutralized him. He's been killed. So even before cops got there, they were able to take care of the threat. It's a crazy world, but that happened, as I understand it, in both situations today, where even before cops got there, the suspects or the attackers were, as authorities call it, neutralized, but they were basically killed. So it's pretty crazy stuff. Yeah. Cool. Question 3. Let's see. Yeah. What was it? Was it the? Oh yeah. Yeah. This is perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I'll just take out the middle part. But yeah. Cool. Okay. Sounds good. It's always cold in the 6. How's it going? And when are we getting news on space? Because I want to know about Mars. Well, I can tell you that Artemis looks like it's a go for launch again. That's not Mars. That's on the far side of the moon. They are excited because it's further than astronauts have ever flown before, but it's not boots on the ground on the moon yet. You know how I feel about that. I'm sure you feel the same way. But yeah, if we can just keep this April 1st, timeline, then yeah, maybe we will see some outposts in space in our lifetime. Fingers crossed. But we do have a space story that Tom Costello did about this company called Reflect Orbital. Have you heard of them? They are wild. They are the ones that want to launch these satellites up into space that have these huge mirrors, and then they can basically shine this nightlight onto Earth. So, solar power doesn't really work at night unless there's a big old spotlight on the solar panels. So we'll see. Obviously, that's super controversial. People don't like city lights, let alone spotlights beaming at you from space. They can turn these things on, they can turn these things off, but it's a slippery slope. All of a sudden, if there's a bunch of companies doing that and they're just shining lights here and there, what's the night sky going to look like? That'd be weird, right? But yeah, we've got that story. We've got the update on Artemis. We've also got a story on where flying cars stand right now. Give them to me. Give them to us, especially here in Los Angeles. Yeah, they look like they're getting closer. There's a pilot program going out. 8 companies, I believe, or 8 companies all across 20-some cities, including Burque back in New Mexico. I'm very excited about that. And also Los Angeles. They're saying that by 2028, we're going to have flying cars for the Olympics. So I'll hold my breath. Also, I'm trying to post this TikTok because I know I have to be better about posting on TikTok so that the algorithms and the blah-de-blah-de-blah. But I'm stuck on this caption. So streaming live every night at 8 Eastern. So swing by. Eastern, 5 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Sound off in the comments. Is that lame? Sound off. Come. That's. I don't want people sounding off. I want people being nice. Come. Say hi in the comments. How about that? That sounds lame, but who cares? Come say hi in the comments. And then what do? Location, Universal Studios. Guys, I don't know if this is probably gonna bomb, huh? Streaming live every night at 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Come say hi in the comments. Boom, I just posted it. And now I'm nervous. And now what happens when you post on social? You're like, oh, is this gonna flop? Anyway. Hi, 217. You're not the only one in here. We got YouTube. We got TikTok. We got, I hope, Twitch. We're now starting. I was literally watching Naruto. Dude, Naruto, you should go back to watching Naruto. Today is a bad day to watch the news. It is very, very depressing. Oklahoma, during the tornadoes 2 days ago. Wow. Jesse, that's crazy. Were you there at the building? That is wild. Yeah, the weather out there was so, Mother Nature. It is. I've covered so many storms, so many tornadoes, so many hurricanes. And I'll say I am so much more afraid of tornadoes than I am hurricanes. Hurricanes are this gradual thing. You kind of know what to expect. You have time to bunker down. You have time to get prepared. Hurricanes are just, they are strike at any moment and just terrifying. And the pressure that happens with your ears, the sound, and then you go outside and you see what they've done to cars. It's crazy. I'm more scared of tornadoes than I am fires, and I say that as a Californian. I'm more scared of tornadoes than earthquakes. Here's the teacup. Let's see, what else? Wait, somebody said, gotta moderate my friends. Wait, hold up. Is that a Twitch? Where was it? What was it? What did it say? Can't see it. Was it high or low? I think we just had our first. Oh, no, that's crazy. Yo, hi, 217. I don't know if you're still on Twitch, but yeah, am I the only one in here right now? Well, on Twitch, yes, because everybody else is on YouTube and TikTok, but welcome. You've just made history. You are our first person weighing in from Twitch. We're really excited about that. I hope you're still there, and I'm not talking into the void. Let's see. With the flying cars, they're going to be flying in other cities. Mountaintop Paradise, that would be nice. Rain in Northport, Florida. SML with the weather check in Florida. Thank you so much. Super windy in London, Ontario. Whoa, in Canada? Nice. Oh, that's right. Always cold in the 6. Yeah, that's right. You're in Canada. You're on Twitch, holding it down. Okay, here's what's going to happen. How many seconds do we have? 30 seconds. Okay, so hi, and everybody else. If you guys are new here, what's about to happen is the actual news show. And it's going to look a little bit different than this. It'll probably look like this, or it's going to be right here. Actually, we'll probably keep it right here. So you'll be able to see me here. This is the iPad camera, but you're going to see the full show. We shot the open just a little while ago. The people on the stream that joined us right at the top, they saw us shoot that. Here it goes. Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight, two separate attacks here in the United States being investigated right now as potential terrorism. One, an attack on a synagogue outside Detroit, Michigan that ended in gunfire and a suspect ramming his car deep into that temple. The synagogue's preschool was in session at the time of the attack.
What's going through your mind?
My first thing, to be honest, were the children. There's a whole, daycare program in there, and parents and grandparents have been coming, and they're scared to death for their children.
And we are on the ground with a live report. Then a deadly shooting at Old Dominion University that officials say was carried out by a gunman who already served hard time for supporting ISIS. Plus, Iran's new supreme leader breaking his silence for the first time since succeeding his father, vowing to, quote, avenge the blood of the martyrs. Around the same time, an American-owned tanker was attacked by Iran and left burning off the coast of Iraq. All while Iranian hackers have launched a major cyber attack on a company in Michigan. So what happens when that conflict expands into cyberspace? And Jeffrey Epstein's accountant was on Capitol Hill getting grilled by lawmakers. It's got investigators chasing down an old rule in Washington, which is, if you want the truth, follow the money. And as the country is already on edge from the war in Iran, we are following the latest in two acts of violence that played out closer to home today in Virginia. This fatal shooting at Old Dominion University being investigated now as an act of terrorism. Thanks to the gunman's previous ties to ISIS. We're going to get into all of that in just a second. But tonight, we start in Michigan, about 25 miles outside of Detroit, where a suspect is dead after driving a truck through the doors and down the hallway of a Jewish synagogue while a daycare was in session. Authorities are not sharing a motive yet there, but here's how the local sheriff described that scene.
He breached the building, drove down the hall, and he was engaged by security.
The car actually entered all the way into the building.
All the way in the building.
All the way in. Do we know how fast he was going?
It's hard to say how fast. I mean, he was traveling with purpose down the hall from my look at the video.
Among the violence and the chaos, one security guard was hurt after getting hit by the car. He is expected to recover. And as Temple Israel updated their congregation on their Facebook page, everyone is safe. All 140 students, our amazing staff, our courageous teachers, and our heroic security personnel are all accounted for and safe. Right now, across the country, security is ramping up. Police are increasing their presence at places of worship as President Trump responds this way.
I want to send our love to the Michigan Jewish community and all of the people in Detroit area following the attack on the Jewish synagogue early today. It's a terrible thing, but it goes on. We're going to be right down to the bottom of it.
Let's get out to NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster, who is live at the scene. Shaquille, the first thought so many in that community had was about the kids that were sheltering in that preschool there. Here's how one woman described those first moments.
Yeah.
I'm scared to death for my friends. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen this kind of, this number of police officers out here. And my first thing, to be honest, were the children. There's a whole, daycare program in there, and parents and grandparents have been coming, and they're scared to death for their children.
Shaq, there was the confrontation, the shooting, the crash, there was a fire. How did it all go down?
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that there were children at least nearby, that gives you that gut in your stomach knowing that this could have been so much worse. So police say that the first call came in about 12:19 p.m. local time. They said that they were responding to a report of an active shooter. But in their response, they say that they learned that this suspect apparently breached or drove into the building, then drove down the hallway, and then apparently was stopped by synagogue security. They say that the security members, private security, engaged the suspect with semi-automatic rifles. And then at a certain point, they say that is when the car ignited. Now, there's still a lot of investigation, and we heard this even about an hour ago when we listened to local officials and authorities. They say they're still trying to figure out exactly what is happening here and what's on the scene. But they say somehow the car ignited, and that's what caused this massive fire that ultimately resulted in about 30 members of law enforcement having to be taken to the hospital because of smoke inhalation. So key points here, Gotti, you mentioned it earlier already, that no kids, no faculty were injured in this attack. There was one security member who apparently was struck by the vehicle and hospitalized. And then there's those 30 or so members of law enforcement, first responders that went in, rushed into the scene afterwards. In some cases had to wear gas masks because of the smoke that was there because of this vehicle on fire. But they say there's no active threat to the community, but you have officials saying stay on guard. If you see something, make sure you say something, because this was definitely a dangerous and tense situation here, Gotti.
Yeah, and as we're looking at those aerials of the synagogue, I mean, it's a large synagogue. You see the smoke pouring out of the roof right there next to where the children's playground was. What else do we know about Temple Israel and the community there?
Yeah, you mentioned this is a massive house of worship, serves some 12,000 members. I think the number on their website, 3,500 families that attend this. And, you know, they call themselves the nation's largest Reform synagogue. We know that it also has that child care center where you mentioned about 140 kids were inside, at least nearby. Again, no faculty, no students were impacted or at least injured in this attack. But one thing that is abundantly clear, Gotti, and this comes from listening to members of the community, even that lady that you heard from at the beginning of this segment here, is that this is a synagogue that has a real big impact on this community. This is not, you know, a church that keeps to itself. You get a sense that this is a house of worship that really goes out, engages with members of the community. You heard from local reporters talk about connections that they have to different programs that are being held here. Apparently, a couple of days ago, they were holding a cupcake session. This is a community that is definitely heartbroken. And you heard from one of the rabbis here at Temple Israel that this is not just an attack on this house of worship, but it really, in their words, is an attack on this entire community, Gotti.
I hate to say it, but this is also a community that appears to have hardened itself. I mean, this could have been so much worse with active shooter drills so common around the country these days. How did Temple Israel prepare for something like this with their security killing this attacker?
Yeah, and you know, it really reminds you that the preparation likely saved so many lives here. This is a synagogue that has full-time security team. They have a security director. The sheriff, in the press statement that he gave earlier today, said that he texted the security director with some information just 2 days ago. And on your screen right now, we saw from the FBI that they actually trained members. They held a training at this synagogue back in January, teaching the principles and reinforcing the principles of how to handle and prevent and deal with situations of an active shooter. The terms in that phrase that we hear all the time, run, hide, fight. They say that the staff here was well trained. They have security here, but it's just an unfortunate reality. The CEO of the Jewish Federation of Detroit saying that security for these temples, for these synagogues, is the biggest expense that they face. He said that it's a number up that exceeds $1 million. These are for people who want to go and pray and worship. It's a sad reality, but unfortunately, or fortunately, the fact that you had the security here today likely saved so many lives tonight.
Yeah, NBC's Shaq Brewster, thank you so much. And turning now to this other deadly shooting to tell you about tonight, this one at a college in Virginia where officials say a gunman who was previously convicted of supporting ISIS was involved. This shooting happening inside a building at Old Dominion University. It killed one person, hurt two others. The gunman was also killed. The FBI says the shooting will be investigated as an act of terrorism. NBC's Ryan Nobles has more.
Tonight, the suspected terror attack playing out on a campus in Virginia. Old Dominion University on high alert after a shooter opened fire in a classroom.
Reports of an active shooter in the building.
Just before 11 a.m., officials say 36-year-old Mohammed Baylor Jala specifically targeted an ROTC class on the Norfolk, Virginia campus.
We have confirmed reports that prior to him conducting this act of terrorism, he shouted, or stated, Allah Akbar.
O. Jermaine Bego's son was in the room and called soon after the gunfire broke out.
He was very distraught and nervous. You can hear it in his voice, but he wanted to let me and his mother know that he was okay, that he was unharmed.
A group of brave students stepped in to subdue the suspect.
And if not for them, I'm not sure, what else he may have done.
According to police, one person was killed, 2 others injured. The shooter also died. The Secretary of the Army tonight saying both people injured were Army personnel. Jallo is from Sterling, Virginia, and was a former member of the Army National Guard. He was arrested in 2016 for attempting to provide material support to ISIS, according to court documents, and allegedly attempting to gather weapons to be used in an attack in the U.S. The complaint at the time said Jallo also attempted to provide funds to people hoping to join ISIS. Documents show that he pleaded guilty to a terrorism-related charge. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison and was released in 2024, according to the Department of Justice. Tonight, classes at Old Dominion University are canceled for the remainder of the week as the investigation is ongoing.
Ryan Nobles, thank you. Let's bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, we don't have a full picture of the motivations here. So far, nothing to suggest that the 2 incidents we just talked about are related, and yet they do happen with this backdrop of the war now raging in Iran. What is the alert level for law enforcement right now, and what are departments on the lookout for?
Well, it's high. Law enforcement is really on a high alert, Gotti, because of the war and because of the danger from, Iranian-sponsored terrorism. Now, ISIS is not Iranian-sponsored terrorism. These are one-off mad dogs that are reacting to world events. I mean, ISIS is the enemy of America, the enemy of Israel, and the enemy of Iran. They attacked the Iranian parliament years ago. So these mad dog guys, they're very shallow, like this guy in Virginia, Old Dominion. They're shallow operators, and they're operating, more like because of world events, and they're striking out at who they hate, ROTC representing the United States, or, we don't know about the motivation in Michigan yet, so we have to wait and see. But if we look at the killer in Austin, Texas, wearing an Iran flag on his shirt, that's more tied into the Iranian war. He's still probably a one-off guy. We don't have any indication of anything else that we've heard about. So it's complicated when you talk about ISIS and Iran, and Al-Qaeda and Iran is even different because at first they arrested Al-Qaeda operatives that fled to Iran, and then they released them and allowed their leaders to operate from Iran because Iran sponsored terrorism against the United States. So there's a long, convoluted history with these groups, but Iran poses a very different threat to us because they are the chief state sponsor, Gotti, of terrorism since 1979. And, their stock in trade has been these huge truck bombs. I was in ATF in Washington when we sent a whole team down to Buenos Aires, Argentina, because Iran bombed the Israeli embassy there with a huge bomb. They killed 29 people, injured 250 more. And look how far from theater that was from Iran.
Right.
They were behind the Khobar Towers in '96 that killed all our people there, and they trained the bombers at the Marine barracks in Beirut. But that is Iran operating with the Quds Force to train killers, to supply them with materials, to make their terrorist attacks effective. And we have not seen that yet, but really it's one of the only 2 ways that Iran can strike out. One is the Straits of Hormuz, which we're watching every day on your show and others. And the second one is their ability to commit asymmetric international terrorist warfare, mainly by huge bombs. And, that's what they can do. And that's what they're going to do. They can't fight us with an infantry and an armored brigade on the ground. They have no Navy now. They have no Air Force. So they have terror and the Straits of Hormuz. And I think that's what law enforcement needs to be most concerned at. These one-off actors we're going to have, but some of these guys are so mixed up in their head, they're not that organized, even though they can be very deadly.
Yeah, these one-off actors. I mean, it's so hard to predict they're so hard to predict, crazy. And so you've got the organized element, and then just people that are so disturbed that they do something like this. Jim Kavanaugh, always appreciate your insight. Thank you. And now to the war with Iran, with more strikes on both land and sea. These stunning images right here of oil tankers going up in flames and smoke after Iran attacked 3 more ships overnight off the coast of Iraq this time. Cameras caught the moment of this explosion. Watch. You hear the celebrating there, all the fire leaving ships charred. Iraqi officials now suspending operations at all of its oil terminals. Afterwards, Iran's new supreme leader broke his silence days after succeeding his father, who was killed in the first wave of U.S. and Israeli strikes. In a message read on TV by state media, Khamenei says he is not backing down in this war. He plans to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, and that news sending the price of oil surging once again earlier. The International Energy Agency is saying that the war is creating the largest supply disruption in the history of the global market. Meanwhile, missiles continue to fly over the Middle East. In Dubai, officials say a drone hit a hotel there, took out a huge chunk of the high-rise building. Also in Dubai, officials say that there were several drone attacks and interceptions today. One person catching video of this drone falling from the sky after some sort of engagement with a chopper. And while Iran says that they are continuing attacks, so is Israel. Today, the IDF says they launched a new wave of its strikes against both Tehran and Beirut. And as the war is slowly approaching the 2-week mark, the number of lives lost continues to climb. At least 1,200 people have been killed in Iran. Over 500 people have been killed in Lebanon, 13 in Israel, and 20 across neighboring countries, along with 7 U.S. service members. Now let's get out to NBC's Richard Engel, who is in Haifa for us tonight. Richard, today we heard from Iran's new supreme leader for the first time, vowing that these attacks are going to continue. What are you seeing playing out across the region?
Well, this has become a new tanker war, and this new statement from the supreme leader, which was read on Iranian state television, it's important to note that we didn't see any moving pictures of the supreme leader. We didn't hear his voice. It was just a written statement broadcast, but the statement that was read made it very clear that the Iranian government, the supreme leader, is supporting continued attacks on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz and fully supports that policy. Also, we've heard the same sentiment expressed by members of the Iranian military. So this is clearly Iran's position. It plans to continue this. It wants to up the cost of the war in order to pressure the United States, Israel, Gulf countries to find an off-ramp. But also, Gadi, by not appearing on television, it has only fueled rumors across the world that the supreme leader may have been injured during the early stages of this conflict in the same attack that killed his father, the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. There's some reports that he might be in a coma. All of these unconfirmed, but more and more speculation after this statement was released. Now, it could be that Iran didn't want to give any clues to his whereabouts, didn't want to give any indication that could help him be targeted. But it is not just Iran at this stage fighting in the Gulf. We're seeing Iran continuing to firing drones at places like Dubai. Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, was almost hit by a drone. So every day that this war continues, there's a risk of a massive escalation. If one of these towers had gotten hit and there's a large numbers of casualties, we could be having a very different kind of conversation right now. We're already seeing extremists in the U.S. now mobilized to action, which is something that happens when there are conflicts. It happened during the Iraq War, during Afghanistan. People who are already extreme become even more extreme. So this is a very dangerous time. And another Another factor is Hezbollah. Hezbollah has entered into this conflict in a major way. Hezbollah, a militia group based across the border from Israel. I'm in northern Israel. I'm in Haifa right now, and not far from here is the Lebanese border. And just on the opposite side of the Lebanese border are Israeli troops fighting against Hezbollah. Hezbollah firing rockets in coordination with Iran, and there was a major barrage yesterday, and this morning I went to a site, a house in central Israel that was hit by one of these Hezbollah rockets. There was an elderly woman inside and a caregiver, and they went to a safe room and quite remarkably survived, were uninjured, even though the house around them was destroyed. I spoke to one of the woman's relatives about how she was feeling in this moment.
Usually Iran doesn't shot here. So there was a surprise and there was no pre-alarm.
No warning at all?
No warning at all.
So just out of the blue, bang?
Yeah. It was the siren, and in few seconds, the bomb went on.
And a reason that there wasn't that alarm that you would expect is because of the distance. When Iran fires a ballistic missile at Israel, it has to travel over several countries and enter Israeli airspace. There's plenty of opportunities for it to be shot down in Jordan, for it to be shot down at high altitude. Lebanon is just over the border, and it doesn't take much time at all for relatively small rockets to travel a short distance. They can be shot down. Israel has very sophisticated Iron Dome system, but it doesn't leave the same amount of advance warning that a Hezbollah, that an Iranian missile would fire. Now, going back to this Iranian strategy, we talked about the Iranian strategy to try and raise the cost of this war globally in order to pressure Israel, pressure the United States, get the American people to stand up and say enough is enough. They don't want to pay more at the pump. Earlier today, I also spoke to Israel's former defense minister, and I asked him how long he thinks this could last, considering this tactic that Iran is now employing.
Do you think that Israel and the United States, this partnership, can last that long, can survive this economic shock?
It should, and when I'm saying it should, it's of course it is being led by the United States, and I think we should convey appreciation for this very strategic decision by President Trump to move ahead with that.
At this stage, both President Trump and Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu are saying that they have achieved a lot of military success, but no indication at this stage that either leader is actively looking for an off-ramp.
Yeah, Richard Engel in Haifa for us. Thank you so much. Now let's bring in retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery to talk a little bit more about the military response to what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now. Admiral, thanks for being with us. Sounds like the United States has air superiority over a lot of Iran, and yet the Iranian coast, that is a different story, right? It's a different concern. What needs to happen to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Thanks for having me. I would argue that, Admiral Cooper and General Kane have said this is a four-week air campaign, and it's going to take 4 weeks of strikes, between the United States and Israel to fully significantly degrade the systems that have to go. So for the Straits of Hormuz specifically, this is missile systems, drone systems, mine systems, and fast attack craft. We're 10 days into it. I don't want to overreact. It should take, 3 to 4 weeks. And I think this might be on the lower end because they're all on the western side of Iran, but 3 to 4 weeks of attack, and we'll get there. You have to have patience. The president was briefed about how long this air campaign would take at the get-go, and he has to have the endurance to continue it, along with our Israeli partners.
If there are mines in the water right now, as we've heard that there might be, what are the anti-mine capabilities of the United States Navy in the 21st century? I know you probably can't get into specifics, but there are so many armchair experts out there that are saying that, you know, oh, well, that's obviously going to end in catastrophe. Is there a way to neutralize or mitigate the threat of mines?
Yes, and broadly, what we have to do is we have to create a 4-layer defense system to allow for the transit through the Straits of Hormuz. We got to have, you know, F-18s, F-15s overhead with an advanced persistent kill weapon system to kill the drones. You have to have armed helos to take care of the fast attack craft. The ships will take it. You have to have destroyers escorting to take care of the missiles. And then what you do is the helicopters and the ships look for mines. If you see a mine, you come to a stop, and there's 2 ways. If it's a singular few mines, when I've had those problems before in the Arabian Gulf, we brought in a helicopter, dropped a swimmer. You know, he slaps some explosive on it, pulled the swimmer out of the water, blew up the mine. If you're in a minefield, you back out, and then you bring in the littoral combat ships with the minesweeping packages. We have several of them available in the Gulf area, ready to go, and you sweep the field. And depending on its complexity, it can take days, it can take weeks. But, you know, really what you have to do is eliminate their ability to place the minefield. If they place random mines, take care of them with helicopters and divers and such, or the littoral combat ships. It's complex, it's hard, but, you know, when you sign up for this, when the president signed on to do this event, securing the Straits of Hormuz, we knew would be one of the most difficult things. We knew it was a 3 to 4 week challenge. He was told that by his military leadership. He just needs to not pull the plug.
I mean, just wild to think of what you're describing, the things that are done that most people don't know about, divers in the water, disarming mines. And you have so much experience in this part of the world. I do have to ask, though, I imagine closing the Strait of Hormuz is probably something the Iranian military, their special forces have been training for years. I guess that probably would be one of their, I don't know, first chapters in the we're going to war playbook, or we're attacked playbook, right? Do you think that they have any potential surprises up the sleeve when it comes to Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, that's a great point. I'm sure they do. I will say that they probably didn't expect that the United States and Israel would conduct a, what I think will be a 21 to 28 day, 15,000 event strike package against them. So that will break up some of their ideas. It will destroy some of their forces. But you're absolutely right. We're going to have to maintain a high level of readiness. And when we do begin doing transit, it's not risk-free. You balance risk to mission with risk to force. The military risk with the political risk. You got to get started. The president's pushing. You got to find out what's that right balance where we can safely transit the first group of very large oilers through and get the flow going. But it's imperative that when this is over, our Arab partners and our European allies know that the United States controls the Straits of Hormuz traffic.
Rear Admiral, there are very few people on this planet that have the expertise that you do. I really appreciate you being with us. Thank you. And the world economy has been knocked off course by the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, sending oil prices shooting up. Now, since the start of the war, international Brent crude oil went from around $73 a barrel to over $100 a barrel today, all of it raising concerns about how long this war is actually going to last and if we're headed towards a potential crisis here or a full-blown crisis. For now, let's get over to the founding partner of Again Capital, John Kilduff. John, thanks so much for being back with us. I want to start off with some comments the Energy Secretary made on CNBC earlier today about the possibility of the United States escorting oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's take a listen to that.
It'll happen relatively soon, but it can't happen now. We're simply not ready. All of our military assets right now are focused on destroying Iran's offensive capabilities and the manufacturing industry that supplies their offensive capabilities.
There are those comments. They're the comments that we just heard, and I'm not sure if you were able to listen, but the Rear Admiral was saying that maybe it's going to be a 2-3 week timeline. I want to get your thoughts.
The Rear Admiral's segment and comments were remarkably insightful, Gaddy. It was the best
information I think I've gotten since this incident has began. That's what we're trying to figure out here in the market. When will the key to all of this, the key to the $200 a barrel question is, when does the Strait of Hormuz open? We just heard from the Rear Admiral, maybe a couple of weeks. And it sounds from what he was saying that there is in fact a plan. This has been a huge blind spot for the market. We've been told with great thoroughness as to what else is happening in that theater. But as far as the strait goes, where the oil needs to get through, and why the reaction has been so terrific by the Western countries, the OECD countries, with the massive SPR releases, is because of that very blind spot that we have. That strait needs to get open. You see the ship traffic just building and building there when you put the map up in terms of the inability to navigate the strait. That's the whole ball game right there. That's 20 million barrels of crude oil a day right there, plus some other key commodities that we've all been hearing about now that need to go back and forth. I will tell you today, the Saudis and Kuwait have both tried to displace some of their volumes that go through the strait, but just like the SPR releases go, it's just not going to be enough. But this market, the oil market, is being very benevolent here, holding on to hope that this is a short-term situation. It has not priced in yet a full-blown energy crisis, but we are certainly on the cusp of that.
The president made some comments on his own today about the rising oil prices. He posted on Truth Social saying the United States is the largest oil producer in the world by far. So when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. First question, who is the we that he's referring to? And second, how much of the oil that's currently stuck in the Persian Gulf, all of those dots that we're seeing that represent potential tankers, how much of that is actually tied into the United States' supply chains or outbound towards a port that may be American?
It is a global market of the first order. What we'll be able to potentially do, because plus we get a good chunk of our own needed oil from Canada, is that we probably won't have shortages here. The rest of the world, though, is staring down that very prospect. We're also staring down the prospect of shortages, forget crude oil, refined products. And diesel fuel has already spiked to a record out in Asia. U.S. prices for it have already soared above $5 a gallon for both diesel fuel and heating oil in the north, which is the primary heating source in the Northeast. So we are not energy independent. We are energy dominant. We are somewhat energy insulated. But man, we are in this. We are all in this together, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, quite a bit of nuance there to unpack. We may not see shortages, and yet the entire world is in a very messy place. John Kilduff, thank you so very much for being with us. And as the war continues in Iran, it looks like the first retaliation stateside is something that we saw today or yesterday. It is it's not a physical strike. It is a cyber attack. An Iran-linked hacker group has claimed responsibility for a cyber attack on a medical tech company, Stryker. This is the first since the start of the war. The company is known for producing medical equipment, tech. There was an anonymous employee that told NBC News that work-issued phones and laptops completely stopped working on Wednesday. And we don't know the specifics of how the group was able to pull off this hack, but one expert says it might have been through the company's Microsoft Intune account that allows remote users to completely wipe a device. Let's bring in NBC News cybersecurity reporter Kevin Collier, who wrote about this hack by Iran and has a lot more details here. So Kevin, what does this say right now about Iran's cyber war capabilities?
Hey, guys, thanks. Yeah, there's no doubt that Iran is kind of lashing out in all kinds of different ways right now, and cyber is just one of the many ways it's doing that. It's had these persistent cyber capabilities for a while, but they are decidedly a rung below Russia, a few rungs below China. What they do have is persistence and sometimes clever approaches to kind of crimes of opportunity. They're going to go wherever they can find an in. That said, you mentioned the Intune thing. It's frankly, it's pretty clever. It's something that nobody I know in the space really saw coming. This Microsoft Intune program, it's something that large corporate kind of IT departments will use to manage like a whole fleet of phones and tablets and computers. Like NBC uses, corporate devices as well, right? And the way you manage that includes an option to just wipe remotely if an employee is fired or if something is stolen. And so what it looks like they did is they just they got somebody's kind of login credentials for Intune, and then just wiped tons and tons of company devices. And you can imagine, it's not just the fact that you can't log on and communicate and email and use whatever you're doing for work, but also you have to have your IT department reinstall absolutely everything, just how much that would grind a company to a halt.
Yeah, that's a hell of a delete button. What safeguards are in place right now to protect things like power grids or nuclear plants from a potential hack that you didn't see coming?
I would say the good news is a lot of times there's something they call in the industry security by obscurity, and that a lot of times an industrial control system is usually how they're ICS is what they call them. Often run on custom operating systems. They're often hard to access. They're often confusing to access. And if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, it can be really hard to manipulate them. Iran has, in recent years, been incredibly accused of hacking into some operating systems for some American water facilities, wastewater and drinking water facilities. However, they didn't ever demonstrate an ability to understand, like, hey, if we increase enough chlorine, we can turn this water poisonous and kind of spread it into some local town, which is the nightmare scenario. The good news is we've not actually seen them actually demonstrate an ability to do that.
Jeez, dude, your nightmares in this space are way worse than my nightmares. There's the infrastructure question, and then there's this cyber, I don't know, propaganda, disinformation, AI slop war that we now see happening in a way that I don't think we've ever seen it before. We've got things coming from Iran, things coming from Russia. The White House is posting some pretty interesting meme clips. Like, what's your take on all this?
I mean, AI has streamlined programming. It's streamlined a lot of streamlined hacking in a lot of ways. It's also streamlined propaganda and online influence operations. It's kind of a mess, of course. I think that a lot of social media, I mean, X in particular, I think if you go on there, you don't even know a lot of the time what you're, if you're looking at it is not only the source of it, but also is it AI or not? And Iran does appear to be doing it just the same as, like you said, the White House uses this, Russia uses this. It is omnipresent, and it is wrapped up deeply into online messaging from all kinds of different powers.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you see it and you may think it's harmless, and then you find yourself, once a seed is in your brain, it's hard to get it out. Kevin Collier, always appreciate your reporting. Thank you so very much. And don't go anywhere. Up next, stunning video of the moment a driver slammed into the scaffolding in the middle of a busy intersection. Look at that. We're going to tell you what went down there. Plus, how soon you could be hailing a cab, then lifting off into the sky. There's a pilot program rolling out across the country that's looking to make flying taxis the real deal. Stay tuned for that. All right, 90 seconds. Okay, chat, we got 90 seconds. Hi. I'm actually not new. I was watching the old streams on YouTube. First time watching it live, though. Oh, love seeing the BTS content. Nice. Okay, so you were watching the streams on YouTube in the old way, without the picture-in-picture and without all the fun little these things. We're going to continue to add, hopefully, bells and whistles, but that's awesome. Flying taxis, no thanks. You don't live in California, huh? Max, I'm doing fantastic. Great to see you. Yeah, go for it, brother. Okay. Yep, let's do it. Okay, perfect. Okay. So we've got headlines coming up. We've got the social media trial happening here in Los Angeles with Meta and YouTube, and it's going to be a big precedent-setting case. Then we're going to have the flying taxis. Then we're going to have these spotlights in space. Lots to come up.
Can you just move your mic up a little bit?
Right here.
Here we go. Stand at the desk.
Staying at the desk. Tina, they'll have pilots at the beginning. We hope.
10?
I do. Common. All right, here we go. Hey, welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we are watching tonight. Deadly weather continues to sweep across the country. In Washington state, one person was killed when a tree fell on their car. Another person was killed in Mississippi. Tens of thousands of people right now are without power, partly thanks to dozens of tornadoes reported in parts of the country. That's been happening over the last 48 hours. And Jeffrey Epstein's longtime accountant testified behind closed doors yesterday. Richard Kahn testified for about 6 hours before the House Oversight Committee as part of this probe into Epstein. He maintains that he never saw or knew about any wrongdoing throughout his relationship with the convicted sex offender. He also said he agreed to serve as co-executor of Epstein's estate because he thought it would help the victims receive money from a fund he set up, or he helped set up. A victims fund paid out over $120 million, but those who received money were barred from filing separate suits against the estate. And check out this wild video out of New York. Outside of Buffalo Wild Wings, this car slammed into scaffolding earlier, just trying to avoid a pedestrian. It went completely airborne there, T-boned the building. Miraculously, no one was hit, and the 80-year-old driver inside, he was not seriously hurt. What a close one. Speaking of airborne, NASA announced today that it plans to launch 4 astronauts on that long-awaited Artemis 2 mission, and that could happen as early as April 1st now. This would be the first time that NASA's new SLS rocket and Orion capsule carry a crew. That team is set to circle the moon on a 10-day journey, and they will travel farther from Earth than any human has ever gone before. And the first passenger train service between Beijing and the capital of North Korea resumed today after a 6-year pandemic hiatus. Train K-27 is scheduled to arrive tomorrow night after a 24-hour-long journey. And turning now to the landmark trial against Meta and YouTube, as lawyers from both sides made their final appeals to the jury today. Now, remember, this trial, which could set huge precedent on how we use social media, is focused on whether platforms could be legally responsible for causing mental health issues in younger users. Lawyers for the woman suing those companies argue that social media has been engineered to be addictive and is like a Trojan horse, a wonder to look at, but once invited in, they take over. But the defense, on the other hand, is arguing that this particular user's mental health issues would have existed even without Instagram. They point to her therapist's testimony, which did not identify social media as the cause of her anguish. And let's bring in NBC's Brian Chung. So, Brian, how did closing arguments go, and what's a jury going to have to decide here?
Yeah, this is the last step. Again, hearing those closing arguments from both the plaintiff as well as Meta and YouTube, the defendants in this case, before the jury then deliberates and then delivers a verdict, which could, by the way, happen as early as tomorrow, could also bleed into next week. But what we heard from the plaintiff, again, representing a 20-year-old woman known as KGM, who says that while she was a minor, she got addicted to these apps, essentially started doom scrolling, and then developed mental health issues like depression, like anxiety. He was arguing that these social media companies are akin to predators in the wild, saying that they're like a lion in the Serengeti, preying on specifically the weak, knowing that they might be more likely to get addicted to these apps. Meta, in their closing statement, saying that is not the case, and they're challenging the jury to look at the facts and see whether or not these types of mental health issues predated her using Instagram and YouTube. Again, it should be worth noting that both Meta and also YouTube deny all these allegations. The fact that they took it this far to court underscores their confidence that they can win. But what does a jury think here? That's what this all boils down to, Gotti.
And if this does go south for Meta and for YouTube, what kind of precedents would this set?
Well, this would set a huge precedent because there are over 1,600 other cases that are watching what's going on in Los Angeles to determine whether or not they would have a shot at getting some sort of compensation from these social media companies as well. It's not just this 20-year-old plaintiff that is kind of at the heart of all of this. It is on the periphery, all of those other cases. There were parents that were on the steps of the courthouse throughout the entire process, arguing that they had lost their loved ones in some cases, that, their young teens had, in some some cases committed suicide as a result of mental health issues that they say came as a direct result of being addicted to these apps. Now, again, is the jury in this case going to find liability on not just Meta, but again, YouTube in this case? And by extension, we have to remember originally TikTok and Snapchat were part of this lawsuit as well. They settled prior to all of this beginning, but that precedent will be set for all social media companies opening themselves up to liability if the jury does find YouTube and Meta guilty in this case. Although, again, if that is indeed what the outcome of this would be, you would expect that those companies would also probably appeal.
Yeah, social media and potentially even beyond. Brian Chung, thank you so much. And coming up in the future of everything, someone called the Jetsons because flying taxis, they might soon be taking flights in more than 24 states. More on that just ahead. What up, chat? All right, where were we? What were we talking about? All right, perfect. Thanks so much. Nice. Hey, Tina, yeah, so Reed, did you know that Reed, he's the commander for that that Artemis 2? I think he's a go-kart pilot too, or a go-kart like racer, which is sick. He's a test pilot, obviously like super decorated as all astronauts usually are, and he's also races go-karts. Very cool. Are there multiple channels your IFB is plugged into? Can you show us what it's plugged into? I can show you. I can show you this. We just use one of these IFB packs, right? So this is the IFB. That's a great question, Max. Interrupt frequency broadcaster is what I've heard it called in some other stuff. But basically, this box, it's plugged into my back, and then I listen. And then right now, it's our executive producer, Todd, who's talking to me, and to our senior producer, Todd, who, until Lisa comes back, she's our executive producer, but you know, she broke her self skiing, trying to rescue kittens from, I don't know, an avalanche or something. But it's New York that's pumping into this. So New York's pumping into this. The LA control room is pumping into this. And I've got, sometimes I've got talk back with some of the correspondents and then program. So I can hear what's happening. That's what's in my ear. Great question. Interruptible foldback? Dude, I think you might be right. Interrupt frequency, interruptible foldback, hi. You know what you're talking about. I love Twitch. This is awesome. Okay, gotta go. See you guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.